when you're done and ready to post it, send me the link so I can repost it.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, we're good to go.
So first off, let me just say to Luca and to the Innovis VC teams that we didn't have Innovis VC style organizations when I was your age. Okay, I'm 50. And as a matter of introduction, I grew up here in Toronto. And for those who couldn't see it before, now you can see it. I'm in the middle of downtown Toronto. It's a very large urban agglomeration in Canada. The largest, in fact, about half the or a third of the population of the country is here. So this is, this is our Madrid, this is our Berlin, this is our Paris, this is our London, our New York. And so when I graduated university in 1995, I got a job at a firm that was pretty entrepreneurial, and the company within 12 months got bought by a mid-stage buyout firm, which is sort of a private equity firm, if you want to look at it specifically, in Menlo Park, and that's San Francisco, Silicon Valley. And I was invited to move to California. That's how I learned what venture capital was. I had no idea up to that point, and I studied economics at university, in nation's capital university in Canada, the University of Ottawa. Which just celebrated its 175th year as a university. The sort of nature of my world was I wanted to be a banker. And there wasn't much in the way of startup-y people here in Canada. We were a very stodgy, boring, well-organized, sort of like the Swiss. The joke in North America is that Canada or Toronto is New York run by the Swiss. Okay, so it's an extremely well-organized city. It's gorgeous. The codes are perfect. The streets are clean. It's safe. But really, it wasn't terribly exciting. And when I was invited to California, I saw a whole different world. And I wasn't the only one that happened to. A whole range of Canadian entrepreneurs moved to California, and you can look at all the companies that were founded. Elon Musk was one of the people that left and went from Toronto down to Silicon Valley at the same time I did. And the rest is history. Canadians are the largest group of people in Silicon Valley, period. And what happened over the next 20 years changed the world because Silicon Valley represented the tip of the spear. And now what we're seeing, and Innovis VC is a beautiful expression of that. We now have centers of excellence, not just in Toronto, not just in the United States, but in Madrid, in Berlin, in Munich, in Paris, in London. These centers all over the world were created by people like me, meaning they returned back home, they brought the knowledge they had, and now here we are in 2023, and I'm speaking to 40 or so or 50 or so young students who all know what VC is. And through Innovis's innovative structure, which I think is absolutely fabulous, if this existed back in the day, I would have been even better suited to being, say, a founder. Okay, because I wouldn't have had to take a decade to make all the mistakes you guys will get a training in 10 minutes. Okay, that information wasn't available. The world now is different. Innovation is the only thing as far as I'm concerned. And as you can see, I'm batshit crazy, okay? And that's the way you have to be if you want to innovate. It's not enough to know how it works. And I had to learn that. And I learned it in Silicon Valley. I learned it in Seattle. I learned it at Microsoft. I learned it by raising over $100 million for the corporations that I've managed. Both public companies, private companies. I've done startups that failed. I've done startups that were acquired. And that's the measure. Okay. I had to do all of that by accident and, crawling my way along. And every failure, you have to pick yourself up. Innovis represents one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Okay. And that is the formulation of an engine that can take the risk portion out of innovating so that people can actually focus on being creative. Okay. Can you imagine when we started, okay, and this is still part of the story, that when I moved to California, and so I'm in California now, and I've decided I'm going to create one of the first cloud-based companies. It's 1998. Okay. Let me just tell you something. There was no cloud. There was no AWS, no Azure, no, Google Cloud. We actually had to buy. So I raised $100 million for my partners to fund our company. 80 million or so of it was for that company. That money was almost entirely spent on buying servers, racks, spaces, developing data centers. Remember, there were no data centers. That did not exist. And so today, if I was to start that company again, I would only need $1 million. Okay, because I would just pay my engineers to build the app and off it went. And I could do that in a short period of time. That's the value of innovation. Okay. The job of innovation is to change the bloody world. And Innovis VC is proof that innovation matters, that it is the only thing that's going to save us from all of the whining that we see in society, climate change and otherwise. I don't care what people do, we're never going to change it without innovation. So if you want to actually change the world, you focus entirely on innovating. And that's the thing that at the end of the day is going to take it. So once I started that company, okay, and I was the junior partner. I was young. I was 24 years old, and I had these big mentors that really showed me what to do. They were serious businessmen that were in their late 30s and 40s that had already done exits. So I had the blessing of that support early on, and in the end, I still wanted to be my own. I wanted to be able to do this again and again and again on my own. And so I moved up the food chain slowly but surely by making all the mistakes in the world. At the end of the day, the thing to remember is that failure is part of innovation. And this is a really important. Am I out, Luca? Oh, sorry, that's not you message. It's another one. So in the end, the sort of thesis here is that you're going to, in a long journey of innovation, you're going to fail quite a lot. You're going to be insecure. You're going to be nervous. You're going to not know anything. And at the end of the day, that's an incredibly important thing that you have to sort of undertake to overcome. It's the single biggest thing that destroys companies. So as an innovator, as somebody who goes out and gets in front of investors and says, legitimately staring them right in the face, I want 10 million bucks, they better believe you're serious. And you better believe you're serious. And you actually have to overcome that fear and take control of it and start to believe that you're going to win, even if the risk is a quantified, known, gigantic thing that is likelier to happen than success. Okay. The innovator's job is to overcome barriers. It's to break down walls. It's to find a new way to do something that at the end of the day is better. So if you think about, my journey, I start out in a world where I didn't even understand what that meant. I came from a working class family. I had nobody's ever gone to university in my family. I was the first person to actually have done that. And so, we were what you would call working to poor class. By Canadian standards, that's not terribly rough, but it's still by the sort of developed world, by European and North American standards, it's poor. Okay, there is no money, and to get to university is a big deal because you don't have the benefit of somebody saying, "Hey, you're going to do this and that and the other thing." And so my life has been about overcoming those limitations and those barriers. But I think having grown up in that type of an environment, having grown up without the assistance or the help of somebody that could do that sort of thing, prepared me to be able to handle the pressures of innovation. And I want to talk about those pressures because it ties back to sort of the career. I continue forward. We exit, we sell the company. I move on. I end up working for one of the founders of Microsoft, Steve Wood, and he became a good friend and a mentor of mine. And he's been a gentleman to me ever since I was, your age-ish kind of thing. This guy really taught me about how to engage in a world of extremely reputable, powerful people. And that's really important to also learn as you go through this thing. You're going to ask yourself all the time, well, am I worthy of this? Or at least I did in my mind, okay? We're all insecure, okay? So don't think otherwise. Everybody who say at your age, most people have a tendency to break foot, I'm the most climb, never. But the fact of the matter is inside of us, We all have that insecurity, but we have to manage it and channel it, and we still have to move forward despite our insecurity. Okay, that's what being an innovative founder is. And when I started to hang out with people like that, I really didn't feel like I had any sort of value to add. I rather thought, oh my God, why does this person really, want to invest in me or make me do these sort of things? But I eventually started to learn that I had something to add to, and that my thoughts and my innovation and my creativity are capable of adding value even with those type of people. And for me, that was the most liberating experience of my entire life, because up to that moment I was petrified of what people thought of me. And it really just made it a lot easier to start to see that pressure, that insecurity, as just other things to overcome. They are there. They're real. Stop denying them. Become comfortable with them, because if you do, you're going to be way more successful in the face of these absolutely atrocious odds. Now, can I ask a question? Can everybody go to the chat window and punch in this number? Out of 10, how many startups succeed within 5 years? Or better yet, out of 10, how many startups fail within 5 years? Out of 10, everybody put your number in.
So you said fail. I thought it was succeed. Put the wrong number in there.
That's okay.
So take that and reverse it.
I will. Yeah. Okay. So look, I think all of you've understood the very important point. Okay. What is the very important point? How do I stop these bloody? Yeah. Okay. There. All right. So how do we? The fact of the matter is, if you choose to be an entrepreneur and you choose to go raise money from somebody, there is an overwhelming probability that you're going to fail. Okay. Now, you really have to, as I said, I'm batshit crazy. Okay. So at the end of the day, I became comfortable with that concept because of the fact that I know I'm going to fail. I know the odds are against me. I know it's awful. And yet I want to do it. Okay. Do you know why that's so important? Because it's what separates those that will from those who want. Right. And this is really important, because the next step in my career was to go from being the guy who looked up to people to actually being the head of a corporation and leading the corporation towards fundraising, towards these other sorts of things. And so I became a CEO of public companies. Okay. These were startup corporations that had made it to public companies on the stock exchange. And I've done two of them. The sort of first one, and Luca, if I can just ask, how long should I talk for before we switch to Q&A?
Yeah, I would say if we have like 20 minutes for questions, at least, that would be cool.
Okay, good. Yeah, okay. I'll wrap it up then a little bit. So the next sort of step for me is I became not the guy who is the co-founder, but I became the actual founder and the actual leader of corporation that had huge capital under management, and in the stock exchange here and in the United States. And so when you have when you have credible public organizations and you're responsible for capitalizing them, that's no different than a private company that's raising VC money. Okay, it's just a different sort of infrastructure to raise the cash. But in that environment, had I not become comfortable with innovation, the stress would have just collapsed me. Okay. And as a public company CEO, software the first time, and marijuana cigarettes the second time, which was most excellent. I find it quite lovely. The sort of experience of raising these companies from nothing to a couple $100 million in value was an experience that then taught me sort of the value of leadership in this sort of venture community. And that's where I had to not only overcome myself, but now I had to demonstrate to the world that I'm responsible for the return on the capital from those investors in a very significant way. And so you start to understand that if you can't deal with the pressure of entrepreneurship, you're never going to be able to handle you're never going to be able to handle the environment that becomes more complex as you go forward. So then when I was done with the first AI company in 2012, I'm a little bit ahead of the curve in the companies that I do, and you'll see why in a minute with the Citizen thing. The big challenge is to time the market. And timing the market's not an easy thing to do. And so, our AI software that we had in 2012, imagine I'm sitting in front of investors, I'm sitting in front of users, I'm sitting in front of media, and I'm talking to them about how this artificially intelligent thing using sort of machine learning tech, which is just pattern identification inside of data sets, is going to change the world. And it's going to, in 2012, nobody even understood what I was saying. Okay. And so again, the lesson is, well, why would they invest in that case? It's credibility, it's your strength of leadership, it's your character, it's how you put yourself forward. Most investors, so the lesson from that is most investors don't know what you're talking about, okay? And especially if there's complexity in the offering that requires a certain amount of knowledge. So you can imagine back in the days of the .com when there was no internet, there were no smartphones. I'm in California doing a startup, okay? Hey, one day we're going to all have this thing and you're going to be able to get any information you want from a website. And people are like, the fuck you talking about? And I'm like, what do you mean? What am I talking about? The internet, 93, did this. It's the most difficult thing of all to convince an investor to invest money into your corporation, given that you're usually, as an innovator, peddling something that's not known to the public consciousness. And that is the lesson from that particular experience that I had. You need to understand that when you're pitching your idea, the way you think about it is irrelevant. Okay. What you need to do is you need to get into the mind of the person that you're pitching the idea to. Or back to the question in the chat, you're going to become one of the 9 out of 10 corporations that fail. Okay, so there is some rationale to how I'm sort of going through this, but what I want to leave you with, okay, with respect to that sort of experience is this. You can your job as an innovation founder is not to be crazy. Okay, I am crazy, but I'm not to be crazy. There's a big difference. Okay, if you're crazy enough to become an innovator, you're nuts. Okay, it doesn't make any sense. It's the stupidest thing you could do, and you're likely to fail. However, there's nothing you could do that will stimulate your mind, your life, and make you feel like you've done something great than innovating, even if you fail. Okay, you still contributed to the fabric of innovation, and you're a greater person in the societal sense than you would otherwise be by taking some job somewhere at a bank or whatever it is. In the end, it's imperative that you understand that when you're pitching your ideas, if you don't want to make the mistakes that I've made in the past, learn to speak to your audience in the languages they understand, using concepts they understand. Your job as an innovator is to get into the mind of your audience, not to regurgitate what you already know. 9 out of 10 companies that fail continuously talked about their damn product, okay? The widget, nobody cares, okay? You need to talk about it in a totally different way. You need to speak to somebody in a manner they can understand, or you will fail totally as a startup entrepreneur. If, on the other hand, you follow that advice and you sort of contribute, if you allow yourself to be removed, okay, from the equation, and that then allows the pitch to be written differently, you're going to reach your audiences more successfully. That's investors, that's stakeholders, that's employees, and that's users of whatever thing you're peddling. Okay, this is the lesson it took me the longest to understand. I used to think that innovation mattered. Okay, it does. And it matters to people like us, and it matters to the academics that teach it, and it matters to VCs. But they are the smallest part of your community when you're building something. okay? Particularly a company that has to sell something and get money in return. Remember that however you pitch, you have to get out of your own bloody mind and you have to be able to speak to your grandmother, okay? If you can't explain it in absolute simple terms to your grandma, you don't know what you're talking about and you're highly likely to fail. And so you must remember that, okay? You must be able to speak to absolutely anybody about what you're pitching. And that's sort of the lesson with that one. Then I went on and did Canada was the first country to legalize sort of the marijuana cigarettes here in the country, and everybody sort of freaked out about it. Ah, it's the end of the world and all this business. But the process unlocked hundreds of billions of dollars in investment capital and created a gigantic industry that was going to be world leading. Okay, Canada is not world leading in cannabis anymore. In point of fact, the innovative groups that brought the $100+ billion worth of capital into that industry did terrific things, innovated, attracted foreign direct investment, attracted venture capital. These companies were some of the most highly prized and valuable equities or securities that you could buy, equities actually, that you could buy on the open market, on NASDAQ, on the New York, these corporations, and I was the CEO of one of them, an American listed corporation, were going to be the next coming. And we did all that we could. And then the government got involved. Okay. This is the next lesson. Don't underestimate the power of third parties to affect your business. Okay. Because when you are thinking about stakeholders, don't just think about stakeholders in the sense of, users and all the sort of standard use cases that you think about. You must look for the black swans, okay, that can come out of nowhere and absolutely rip apart your business. And you need to think about these things. The cannabis company we raised $13 million to fund it. Investors are extremely happy. It was floating up to $200-300 million as a listing. And that listing was then hypothecated by poorly timed, poorly managed government intervention into the industry, where they completely dysregulated the ability for any of these capital corporations, these are for-profit companies wanting to sell this stuff legally, to engage in the market. And what they did, you're not allowed to market. You're not allowed to put anything on a website. You're not allowed. It basically meant you can grow it and you can sell it to one buyer. Okay, in every province. In Canada, each province is a sovereign nation. Okay, Canada's a collection of sovereign nations, and so every province was going to create themselves, this regulatory environment, and boy, did the bureaucrats get involved. No innovation whatsoever. In fact, you couldn't even put branding on any of the packages. So you couldn't market, you couldn't put branding, you couldn't do it. I've raised $13 million. Let's think, okay? Now, what do you do when that happens? This is a hard one, okay? Because as the CEO, your fiduciary obligation, or as the founder that took the money, your fiduciary obligation vis-a-vis your investors is to maximize their return. You now have no ability whatsoever to compete in the market for share. What do? The answer is you don't do anything, okay? And the Canadian government, in all their bloody wisdom, okay, and none, collapsed the industry. And the short version of the cost, which just came out in a Bloomberg study, was this. Now, I'm showing you this for a reason, okay? Because this is the origin story of CITIZN. All right. The government we told the government, the government comes and asks for opinions and asks for briefs and submit this to this committee and that sort of stuff. Bay Street, which is our Wall Street in Canada, Wall Street in the United States, all submitted briefs saying, if you do what you're proposing, you will collapse the industry and it will cost $100 billion. That was our estimate in 2016. Okay. We told them that. We were off by $31 billion. Okay. It's absolutely disgusting to me that innovation like we were putting on the table, and I'm talking about thousands of companies that entered this market for hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars invested was systematically destroyed without a thought. Okay? That is one of the greatest risks, called a black swan, that you can't anticipate, but you will have to manage at some point in your career. And when I looked at that, and I will finish with this part of the story, I then founded a company called CITIZN, because what I realized at that moment, remember, failure is the best teacher ever. Okay? Remember, the whole thesis behind this, you're going to fail more often than you're going to win. That's the way it is. What do you do about it is what's important. So what did I do about that? I studied for 2 years with my anger and frustration focused on what the hell happened that a government is able to throw out that amount of money, which basically could have solved poverty the globe over. Okay. Now think about that. That amount of money could have solved all of it. But no, we're just going to throw it out for fun because that's the way we do it. Okay. We're not going to think. We're not going to calculate. We're not going to do mathematics. God forbid. So I sat down and I figured out the issue is the government can get away with it. And if it's in their interest to get away with it, then they will. CITIZN is the structure that will disallow such things in the future. That is, it is a social network that one can download if one is in Canada. I'll just show you this. So this is CITIZN. It's one social network per country. You know, it's a news feed like any other sort of social network, and it's got my profile. I can go find friends, and it's got all the, you know, the different features that you would expect. And this is, so in the end, CITIZN is a social network for the people. We call it the sixth estate. The sixth estate is going to be the thing that tells the government, stop being dumb. Okay, you're really dumb. You got to stop being dumb, and you got to stop being dumb right now. And the way it's going to do that is that it's going to count every person's voice every day on every issue before the government. Not random stuff. I like climate change, or I want this kind of program, or whatever it is, but specific stuff. There's a committee meeting, good. The whole country can opine. There's a vote, the whole country can opine. There's an election, the whole country can participate. Right now, in democracies, if you actually do the math on how things work, this is going to be my last question, and I'm going to close after this. So everybody pull up your chat windows. You have two answers to give me. The first, what is the probability out of 10? Just pick, you know, a single number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 10 that a bill will get passed if 100% of the population supports it. And what is the probability if 25% of the population supports it? Okay, in any country, doesn't matter. It's the same number. So give me those two numbers out of 10, 1 to 10. Okay, we got a 5, 7 and 5. Okay, 1 to 7, 2 to 5. Good stuff. Good stuff. 20%, 5%, 8%, 6. Okay, 80, 60, 10, 10, 3, 10. Okay, this is awesome because these answers are precisely what an educated person would expect is true. There's some correlation between popular support and a bill being passed, right? That seems reasonable. Not true. It's entirely untrue. Would it surprise you to find out that there is no correlation mathematically between popular support and a bill being passed? The probability of a bill being passed with 100% support is 30%. The probability of a bill being passed with 25% support is 30%. Now, stop and think about that for a moment. We are the people. We run the damn world, right? Bullshit. Now let's talk about the other group, the lobbyists, which are terrific, by the way. I'm not mad at them. I want the people to have the same power as the lobbyists, and that's what CITIZN's going to do, because you can't ignore something that's measured and credible. The lobbyists are measured and credible. Do you know what the problem? Now, everybody, chat room, what is the probability that a bill by lobbyists will be supported by the politicians at 100% popular support versus 25% popular support? Yes, this is as crazy as you think it is. So don't try to beat me. Just what you would probably expect is that more popular support plus a lobbyist accelerates things, right? Wrong. This is the part that blew my mind when I started studying the actual reason the cannabis industry is wrecked in Canada. The answer is, once again, there is no correlation between popular support and a lobbyist's ability to get a bill through. A lobbyist will get a bill through 2 out of 3 times. Every time, regardless of popular support. Now, these 2 things should scare the shit out of you, because it means we don't actually live in democracies. Now, you would think, oh my God, he's crying wolf. He's making crazy statements. Bullshit. Okay. The fact of the matter is that we are, in fact, now living, according to the Economist Intelligence Unit, the Edelman Trust Barometer, or any other academic paper you choose to go find from your respective universities, all say that democracy is not only in decline, it is seriously unhealthy. The solution to all of this is CITIZN. CITIZN is the simplest way to bring everybody together in each society. Each country is going to have one social network. They'll all be tied together globally, but Murray in Toronto has no business in Germany telling Germans what to think or do, like it is on social networks today. And I think that if you do that and you produce this, that at the end of the day, this solution will solve the problem that I've identified. And this is the most important point and the lesson from this last piece. You cannot be innovative if you don't solve real problems. Real problems, okay? There's no world where a company out of 10 of those companies succeeds. That one company that succeeds solved a real, tangible, material, germane problem to people's lives, okay? Don't try to be fancy when you're thinking about how to do innovation. Oh, well, if we do a better PowerPoint, like Canva, okay? Canva's awesome, but it was long odds, okay? Real innovation, okay, requires more than just that. You think Microsoft's not going to punch back against Canva? Look what happened to Zoom. We're on Teams right now, okay? So in the end, when you think about these things, it's not enough to have a better mousetrap. That's not innovation. That is improvement. It's stuff that will go. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm simply saying that if you're a real startup, your innovation odds are very long, 9 out of 10, not 1 out of 2. Okay. Remember this. If you are not convinced that you're solving real problems, don't do what you're doing. That's the measure. And trust your instincts. If something feels rotten, hop off, start something new. Okay. Because it likely is rotten and you're pushing a ball uphill or a square peg in a round hole. Take whatever analogy you want. But in the end, I hope that my story tells you a couple of things. First off, anybody can be an entrepreneur. If I am, anybody can be. Okay. That's number one. Number two, it's a mindset. It's a way of thinking. And your job in that thinking is not just to talk about your thing. It's so amazing. Your job as an innovator is to de-risk that proposition. Okay, so think about writing a thesis at school. It's the same thing. Your job as an innovator is to consider all the stuff that you would have to overcome to achieve your goals. And if you can't find a path forward that makes sense, don't go. Okay, otherwise you're just going to fail, which is third lesson. Do lots of research, okay? Measure twice, cut once, that sort of thesis. Don't stop just because you feel good. Continuously test every hypothesis that you've undertaken, okay? Ask yourself if the timing, by the way, Bill Gross, Idea Labs venture capitalist, has famously said, the only thing that matters when a company is entering a market is timing. Now, it doesn't mean that the team doesn't matter, or the idea doesn't matter, of course all those things matter, but they have very little to do with the outcome. Okay. If the timing is not right, your startup will fail. So on that, Luca, I think I'll stop. And I've been honored to speak to all of you. And I would like to encourage every one of you to connect with me on LinkedIn. I tried connecting with lots of people, but it didn't work out everywhere. So do connect. Happy to talk to you. Happy to support your initiatives. Happy to make introductions to investors. Happy to do all of it. You guys are awesome, and I really appreciate being here today.
Thank you so much. Well, I think what's really missing here is like the applause you would have. I think we can all give some virtual applause. Even though this doesn't pay enough respect. Thank you so much. That was like one of the quickest half hour I've ever experienced.
Ah,
So,
good.
yeah, definitely. It was great fun. So I would just open the floor right now to everyone who has questions, and I will try to
Thank
keep
you,
it
Laura.
live. Just raise your hand and yeah, get it started. Or do we have some
Yeah.
hands? How do you do it?
Maybe you can read out the questions to me, Luca.
All right. So we have Ariel. How do you make sure your voting system is accurate and secured? And how did you make sure a case such as Cambridge Analytica doesn't happen on your platform? How could your
Yeah.
company better represent every citizen's vote?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good thing. So, long before we even decided to do this, we had to address those questions because Cambridge Analytica, for everybody who doesn't know, was basically a company in the UK that was taking publicly available information and some non-publicly available information from Facebook and other platforms, combining it and then selling it off to people in a very wrong way. Okay. There were legal matters, there were trust issues, there were a range. It was not a wise thing that they did. And it really did pollute. It was the beginning of social networks getting a bad name. Okay. Once that happened, up to that moment, social networks were terrific. And now, Cambridge Analytica's first problem is they didn't have the right to sell the damn data. Okay. That's the first thing. The second thing is you've got to have the credibility to sell that data, meaning, does Laura agree that that data is being sold? Or does Maximilian think it's okay for his movie watching habits or other habits to be publicly available? Okay, this is important because if you can solve both, we all do. If you can solve those problems, okay, then you don't have a Cambridge Analytica. What you have is the informed consent of the people who are on the platform to sell this. Now, you would ask yourself, does that mean I'm going to have like a click-through contract and all that sort of stuff, and therefore that's it? No, because none of us, the answer to the question about Maximilian and Laura is none of us want our shit shared unless we're getting something for it. Okay, that's a short answer. Now, what if I said to you that I'm not going to be the one who owns that data? That's number one. So that's our first solution. The people of each country are not only going to own the data, it's going to be on servers they control in a corporation they own. And they will set all the privacy policies, the sale policies, the control policies, and everything else that is associated with it. And most importantly, because they own it, they will be the beneficiaries of its income. Once you do that, what this works out to is about $50 in revenue a year, okay, that's created on this platform. 40 of it is gross income, okay? And what we do is we split that money 70-30, okay? So you would expect us to take 70. No, the people get 70. We take 30 to run the platform, okay? This is important because it means that every person in the country, by playing on Citizen, okay, say Citizen Germany, Citizen Spain, Citizen France, Citizen whatever, are generating $40 a year that goes into a bank account controlled by the users. Now, I don't have to tell you that in Germany, there are almost 60 million eligible voting age people. Okay, what is 60 million times 40? Okay, it's a lot of money. It is billions upon billions of dollars a year that goes into a single bank account. And that bank account is controlled by the users. Nobody else. They decide what to spend it on. So let's take a couple examples, okay? So first off, it's your data and you've agreed to sell it. Second of all, it's making tons of money. Third, together, you become the most powerful people in the entire country because you not only can influence with the carrot, which is the data, you can actually enforce your will with the money. How do you do that? Three superpowers created on Citizen. Number one, the ability to fund protests at scales can't possibly have imagined. Okay. When you're a billionaire, you can do things. We make the people collectively a billionaire, and therefore they can do things. Okay. They're going to have as much power as Elon Musk. Imagine. Number two, superpower, the ability to launch lawsuits against the government and fund them. Do you know why people can't sue the government? Because the government can afford to make you wait forever. And that's a game that's played by the bureaucracy. But if you have more money than the government to spend on legal suits, I promise you they will avoid you at all costs. Okay. And by the way, that's universal. It doesn't matter if you're German or Canadian or American. Nobody wants that problem. And number three, and this is the greatest superpower of all on the platform, that they will be able to fund solutions themselves. This creates competition for tax dollars. And I don't know about you, but I expect that most people here are capitalists. So I believe that in a capital society, once you have a population that actually has this power, and in addition to that, the money to exercise that power, that you're going to find governments are going to very quickly adhere to the will of the people expressed through the data itself. Now, you can imagine on this social network, you get notifications on a daily basis, maybe 5 or 6 a day. That's it. It takes you 1 minute for each. No big deal, right? You do it for breakfast pictures. I mean, come on. But in the end, this will generate that kind of cash. That's the way we don't become a Cambridge Analytica. That's the way people are happy to sell this data, because they're like, I get to pick what's sold. Okay, so they have total control over everything. Not me, not nerd Murray in Toronto, where the head office is. The people in the country. My job is like Office 365. I'm Office 365. I'm Microsoft. I'm not your emails. That's your stuff. Okay. What you make off those emails is up to you. I hope that answers the question.
I will just give that back to Ariel if that's cool with him, or
Yep.
if he needs more clarification.
Awesome.
All right. Cool. Other than that, I will move forward. Just wait a second. 2 questions. All right. Thank you. Yeah, he's fine. So we have 2 questions regarding mindset that I find really interesting, because you also mentioned some learnings that changed the way you think over your
Yes.
whole story. So the first point is if you had imposter syndrome in the beginning, and if so, how you dealt with it. And the second point, how you worked on your mindset specifically, if it was all failure driven, or if there were any hints you can give us.
Yeah. Look, I think I sort of alluded to this in my conversation.
Mhm.
Of course, I had imposter syndrome. That's the story of living, is having imposter syndrome. Okay. And this is how I dealt with it, because I eventually figured this out. The unfortunate problem in life is that you have to live it forward. Okay. And you don't know what's next. That and the condition of entering, you guys are now entering a world that you perceive as, oh, all these powerful people. But guess what? There's a great line in Harry Potter, okay, that says, every great wizard who started out just like us. And the answer is, that's exactly what it is. That's how you deal with it. You take it one step at a time. There is no solution. Only experience gives you the solution. Now, let me tell you something else, okay? There's an additional sort of thought that you can sort of apply to this. You have to remember that you do have limitations, okay? You don't have to try to impress people that like say Pete or me or somebody else that's some big cheese, okay? Because we already know what you are, and we like you for who you are. And I didn't know that then. Okay. I tried to impress people. I tried to be more than I was. And that's counterproductive. So I strongly recommend you put your peacock feathers away. Okay. Yes, put your best foot forward. Yes, be strong. But most important of all, the way you solve it is by being curious. There are no stupid questions. Why? Now, you've probably heard this before. There are no stupid questions, right? And everybody's like, yeah, there's no stupid questions. And then when they have a stupid question, they don't ask. Okay. That's the problem with that thesis. Everybody believes it, but nobody practices it. Do you know why asking stupid questions is beneficial? Because you'll never do it again. But if in the meantime, instead of asking the stupid question, you don't learn anything, you just try to show off and, oh, I know everything, so I'm just not going to talk or I'm not going to do this. You know what? You might look like a fool for 2 seconds, but within a year, you're going to be further ahead than the person that sat there and tried to show off. So showing off is stupid. It doesn't make any innovative sense. It doesn't make you stronger. You use what you have now, your youth, to learn everything you can get your hands on, even with a venture capitalist when you're pitching, even when somebody who's curious is a whole lot more reliable than somebody who's a pompous shit that is trying to show off to people. And we can sniff that a mile away. Okay. But young curiosity, a desire to be right. Okay. A desire to do right, not be right, is the way you handle imposter syndrome, because you are an imposter. You're trying to be an innovator and you've never done it. Okay. One day you were a kid, then you graduated and went to high school. That way, didn't you have imposter? Oh my God, the big kids are going to kill me. You know, this sort of thing. That we all go through this at every stage of life. This is no different. Okay. Now I'm 50. And I don't give a shit when anybody thinks, but that only came because I spent the time being curious. You'll eventually be as nuts as I am, I suppose, you know, or at least some of you will make it into nutdom. But at the end of the day, it's really up to you to be comfortable with the fact that you are imposters and everybody knows it. Stop trying to do otherwise. That's how you handle it. This is the most direct way to counter that insecurity that is natural.
Well put.
Yeah, Pete's in. I figure we're in the same ballpark. Is that right?
I know what you're talking about.
Exactly. There's nothing to show off. Okay, showing off is the dumb thing. You are what you are. Be it and ask questions, and you will learn. And people my age will be happy to help.
Awesome. Okay.
Great.
Then yeah, let's move on to the next question. We have from Finn, a more technical one. Like, as a first-time founder, where and how do you find good software engineers?
Oh, that's a hot commodity. Eh? You know what? So again,
maybe it's like more to how do you find, from my side, I would be interested in how do you find good people, or what are your criteria when you identify like team members for your startups?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a really important question because, you know, if you take the 9 out of 10 that fail, if there's some very well-known reasons why companies fail, the wrong partnerships, the wrong team members, the wrong capital, it doesn't necessarily mean absence. You'll always be able to find these people eventually. How do you find them? Introductions from friends, going on job boards if you're hiring and can pay, friends that'll do the jobs for free, companies that are owned by people you know. All that stuff is pretty tactical stuff. You'll find them. The question is, are they the right ones? Now, this is so important because for me, some of my earliest experiences was I was so animated by my company, my desire to do good, I want to get along with everybody. Oh my God, remember imposter syndrome. This is, I want to fit in. I don't want to offend. The problem with this is that you should be looking for character. Okay. Character is what happens when shit hits the fan and you expect an output. You can find anybody who meets the criteria, but are they the right cultural fit for your whatever it is? Okay. Some people don't work well in certain environments. That's probably more important than the technical skill they possess. And again, I'll say there's 1,000 ways to find an engineer. The question isn't that. The question is, are they going to contribute, or are they going to steal your intellectual property, or are they going to harm you, or are they going to lie to you? More companies have failed in startup land because of stuff like that than ever failed because of incompetence in a particular skill set. Okay, so I wouldn't worry about how to find good engineers. I would focus on finding the right cultural fit for you, your circumstances. I don't mean culture nation. I mean, if you're you can imagine working for me, okay? What do I expect? Okay, I have high expectations of people who are on my team. Now, if I hire somebody who doesn't have that sort of desire to get up in the morning and just kill it, get out there, I'm going to be frustrated as CEO, and I'm probably going to cause more problems than I solve. That would be the wrong person for me to hire. Okay. The same thing applies to you. Fit is more important than skill. But skill is the minimum threshold. You need to be able to, you need to be a software development engineer to code. You got to be able to do whether it's Android or iOS, or you got to do cloud or database or whatever. You still need the skill, but skill is not rare. And don't ever think it is. Everybody's been told skill is rare. Skill is not rare. Good skill is rare. Okay. Now that's a totally different thing than skill. It's not enough that they have a ticket from Waterloo, which is our greatest tech university, which is our MIT, or it's not enough. Okay, the number of idiots that I know come out of Harvard, it just blows my head off. Okay, Oxford and Cambridge, the same. A certificate is not a guarantee of innovation, contribution, or commitment, but character is. And so that's the answer.
Awesome. All right, then for time's sake, I think the last one we have in the chat right here, and this one we will end it with. It's again more on the psychological side related to mindset and mental health, because as we all know, the startup world can be really stressful. So what makes you like deal with all the stress and all the mental side of being a serial founder? What makes you get up in the morning? Is it the drive to innovate, the curiosity?
Yeah, so let me start by saying your statement that it's stressful is best expressed thus. In Silicon Valley, there's an entire industry called nootropic that for all intents and purposes aims to serve the pressure-filled minds of entrepreneurs with a whole range of different supplements and all kinds of other things that chill them out. So the reality of it is very real. The intensity of being an entrepreneur, I'm going to talk about that first, and then I'll talk about sort of the solution. Choosing to be an entrepreneur is where you solve this problem. Okay. It's not once you're in it. Okay. Because then the only thing you can do once you're in it, if it's not for you, is an antidepressant or something. And that's not a good solution. Okay. What you need to do is self-select first and foremost. Now, let me tell you what you're selecting. You are selecting a high probability of failure, the most intense criticism you've ever received in your entire life, and the greatest pressure to serve others, employees, investors, whoever it is, that you've ever experienced. And you will have a legal fiduciary duty to those people that they can crush you with if you don't do the job. And I mean by lawsuits and stuff after the fact. If you take people's money and you don't perform, they'll come for you. Now, this is the world you enter. Now, that's a problem statement. Okay. So let's say the pressure's huge. Didn't dissuade me, and it shouldn't dissuade you. But it should make you think twice and research twice or three times or measure twice or three times before you make the cut, meaning launch something. Your job is to reduce risk and to quantify the reduction, to understand that what you're doing is worthy of other people's money. Okay? If it's your money, I don't give a rat. Do whatever you want. Okay? Deal with it however you want. Be lazy, be strong, be whatever. But the moment you take other people's money, or you have employees that you're paying, you have an obligation, a legal obligation to them, to do your level best to achieve results, even at great expense to yourself. That's important, because as a founder worth their salt, you are going to suffer in a manner you can't possibly imagine. Okay? And I mean this. You're going to go home and you're going to end up on your bed and you're going to curl up in the fetal position sometimes, and you are literally going to feel like you're losing your mind. Can you handle that? I hope so, because you will get there. Every single person, even at my age, ends up with this pressure over time. Do you think when I launched CITIZN, I expected COVID to come along? Now think about that. How hard was university during COVID? Pretty damn hard. Okay. It was tough on you guys, big time. You imagine me where I had millions of dollars of people's money in my hands? Couldn't do anything. What do? The pressure can be so significant that at the end of the day, you need to prepare yourself for that. And the best way to prepare yourself for the inevitable black swans, the pressure, the loss, the employees quitting, people stealing your shit, threats from competitors, it is the most, you know how like the Premier League of soccer is the most intense, the European League is the most intense soccer league in the world? Okay. And to get into that is the dream of every little kid, girl or boy nowadays. Everybody loves it. Okay. Soccer, soccer, soccer. The competition to get into a Premier Soccer League pales in comparison to the competition to succeed in a startup. This is the most intense competition available in any arena anywhere on earth. You are literally choosing to compete with gods. Okay. And every one of you has the power to do it. The way you do it is by measuring twice before you make a decision. Minimize all the things you can control so that when things you can't, you can focus on doing those things. You have everything you need to do it. I'm not trying to scare you. I am trying to make you think twice about thinking it's all, startup, yay. It's not. That ends on the day you announce, okay? So I hope that's the answer, Luca.
Yes, definitely. I think that's a great way to end it also. There's just lots of thank you so much again, Murray. At least for me, I can say it's like a really good amount of input to also think about, but like the overall message was really inspiring and really cool. And yeah, I'm sure like everyone can take at least one thing away from that, which
Yep.
is also awesome. And I mean, to end it, we're also already over time. I would just
Yep.
love to make like a screenshot so we have something to post on Instagram.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. I'll take one too. You gonna put
So
it in the gallery setup?
yeah, exactly. So everyone, turn on your cameras. You can do it. We have 30 people in here. Yeah, that looks great. All right, then I will count down from 5 and do a screenshot. 4, 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Cool. All right.
Okay, everybody. I hope to talk to you soon. Make sure to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to support you in anything you want. Reach out, direct message.
Well done, man.
Ciao. Thanks,
Luca.
brother.
Everyone.
Thank
you
you
very
very
much.
much. Bye.
Later.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.